Andrew Abbott is just like all of us. He is ready for the season to start now, and he showed why on Monday.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, everybody. You are Locked On Reds, your daily source for all things Cincinnati Reds. I'm Stephen Offenbaker. He's Jeff Carr. We love baseball. We love these Cincinnati Reds, and we have taken our love for the game. We have taken our love of this team, and we have turned it into information for you. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's podcast, we are going to take a look at starts from Andrew Abbott and Nick Martinez, as well as dig into some of the other arms that got their springs underway yesterday out in Arizona. Before we get into that, I want to shout out the sponsor of today's podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets back if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. And where we are going to get started today, Jeffrey, is with Andrew Abbott, because we've been waiting to see this guy. He left us in a place of wondering when the season ended in 2023. Was he figured out? Did the league adjust to him so badly that they were just smacking him around, or was he just gassed? Was he just tired? We learned a lot about that today. I think his numbers for his first outing showed that he still got a little bit in the tank there. He's been able to recharge and get stronger and do some things. And he addressed his tiredness at the end of last season. He told us that we'll get to here in a bit that he worked on making some improvements to himself so that it doesn't happen again. And he went out and did just fine spring training debut for 2024. 2 innings, 6 up, 6 down, struck out a dude, didn't allow any runs.
Yeah, and I think that he has showed that if he's healthy, he's a lock for this rotation. I saw in the Inquirer they were talking about, well, he's in the competition for the 5th spot. I kind of think that if everybody's healthy, we know who the 5 are. And I feel like Andrew Abbott showed why on Monday. Yes, you could say I'm overreacting to 2 innings of a spring training start by saying that he deserves to be a lock to the rotation. I would say this: there's so much that we saw last year that just to see him be healthy, to see him come out and pitch and be efficient with his pitches, and the fact that he didn't rely on his best pitch to do it, I think it just shows to me there's not really a whole lot of debate surrounding him. I find this interesting because I did this. I'm guilty of this offseason, really looking into the numbers, looking into the periphery and saying, what was it? Did he get figured out? Because there are some numbers that might say that, whether you're talking about the quality of contact that he allowed or things like that. But to be honest with you, he proved to us that's all just noise, because he was in the strike zone, completely efficient. He had his curveball working, looked more like a curve than a sweeper. There was no StatCast or anything like that to confirm this, so I'm basing it on what I saw from the camera angle. But a lot of fastballs, a lot of curveballs. His one strikeout that he got was on a beautiful curveball that just froze the guy in the box. He had no idea what that was, and whenever the umpire called a strike, he was like, yeah, I guess so. I couldn't tell. And it was a fantastic pitch from him. And he really had a feel for those. And it was interesting too, because the way that he pitched and the efficiency that he had, he only faced 6 batters. So he didn't face that many. He actually had a bullpen session afterward to work on some more stuff because he felt like he needed more pitches. But he had this to say about his outing after the game.
Well, I was getting the fastball in for sure. Didn't really get not a lot of comfortable swings off, so that was good. I didn't really throw many off-speed pitches. I couldn't really tell you how many there were, but so that's mainly what the bullpen was, is just trying to work on pitches I didn't really touch in the games and just making sure to fine-tune those a little bit.
I find it really interesting that the Inquirer has an article out saying that he's in a competition for the 5th starting spot. I think he did more than enough. I'm with you, Jeff. You look at his numbers from 2023. I think he did more than enough to be this team's 5th starter in 21 games.
We're talking about him as opening day starter, not 5th starter.
if you did it based on who performed the best, 21 games started, a 3.87 ERA. You know, his walk rate per 9 was 3.6, a skosh high. Strikeouts per 9.9. He was almost at the 10 magic number. This guy got it done, and he got it done consistently for the Reds throughout 2023. If he's healthy, I'm with you. Barring injury, and we keep saying that because lots of things can go sideways out in spring training, but
right,
if he's ready to go on game number 1, he should be in this starting rotation. He's earned that right. He showed us that he can pitch well as a starter. You know, he threw 109 innings plus his work in the minors last year. So more innings on his arm than he's ever had. He recognized that he needs to get stronger. He recognized that he needs to do some things as far as his preparation for his body to be ready to handle an even more increased workload. And he did those things. I can't see a scenario where he's healthy and he's not in this rotation.
No, and speaking of health too, there was a great encouraging update from Nick Lodolo and from Graham Ashcraft during this game. Jim Day was talking with them in the dugout, and Graham Ashcraft confirmed he will be pitching on Thursday whenever the Reds face the Dodgers. And then Nick Lodolo expects to be in game action in about a week. He didn't give an exact time frame like Graham Ashcraft did, but we know that Ashcraft will be pitching on Thursday. And health, we kind of qualify everything with that just because we can't predict it. But based on performance, there's no reason that he shouldn't be in this rotation. And Andrew Abbott has talked earlier in the offseason. He was on the Hot Stove League show on WLW talking about, you know, what is his goal for this upcoming season, and it's just longevity. It's just adding innings, adding starts. He wants to be there every 5th day. He wants to be healthy all season long. He wants to be effective all season long, because like they threw up the stat graphic of him during the spring training outing. His first 10 starts, he had a 2.5 ERA. His next 11 starts, he had a 6.5 ERA. So if he can mitigate that, then you're talking about a really good pitcher. And still, even with that 6.5 ERA, he finished the season with an under 4 ERA. I think overall for me, Andrew Abbott is the guy. And especially when you hear him talk, I mean, he talks ad nauseum in a couple of different scenarios, and I've seen different articles, you know, referencing this. But when he talks about what he worked on this offseason and how hard he worked and how he focused, I really think he is ready to go.
You know, I did a lot of conditioning, a lot of weightlifting because, you know, first thing that went on me last year was legs. So just taking what I learned from last year and being able to apply it, at least in my training, you know, trying to not overwork them, but work them enough to where when we get to that later part of the season that they don't break down as easy.
Yeah. I mean, and he identified what the problem was, Jeff, and he told us that the legs went, and that makes his last month of the season. If you keep that in mind and you go back and look at the stats from the last month of the season, he was just chucking the ball up there, all upper body. He had no legs left, and that explains a lot. So did the hitters adjust to him? Well, yeah, they're the best hitters in the world. They made adjustments. Right. They got better against him, but they didn't get that much better against him. He ran out of juice. And I'm looking forward to seeing him pitch more.
Yeah, and it's things like what he did on Monday are the reason why he's so good, and the reason that for me, he's a lock. He's a lock for this rotation come opening day. Well, if Abbott is a lock, then that means we know where Nick Martinez's spot is going to be. And we'll explain what that is coming up next. Before we get to that, though, I want to tell you about one of today's sponsors, and that is eBay Motors. You know, passion, drive, and patience is what brings home the winning trophy in sports, but it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, LED headlights, exhaust kits, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices that you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP you want it to be and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit only available to U.S. customers. Thanks as always for making Locked On Reds your first listen every day. Everydayers, coming up on the show tomorrow, we will have a special guest with us as Cincinnati Enquirer sports columnist Jason Williams will join the show, and we're going to ask him, why so serious? And that was maybe a little bit hard. Anyway, that yeah, we'll get better at the Joker impersonations around here. But Steve, we know if Andrew Abbott's in this rotation, I mean, Nick Lodolo is going to be in this rotation if he's healthy. Graham Ashcraft, Hunter Green, Frankie Montas. That's your five. That means that Nick Martinez, is going to start the season in the bullpen. But look, the best case for the Reds this year is having Martinez as this Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, it's in the best interest to continue in spring training to treat him like a starter, whether they think he's going to be a starter or not. Get him stretched out enough that he can give you 3, maybe 4 innings in an emergency out of the bullpen. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, he came out in yesterday's game as the starter, air quotes, and did perfectly fine. 2 innings pitched, struck out 2 guys, walked another, but did not give up any runs. That's what the Reds need from him. They need him to be that 6th, 7th inning guy, the 5th, 6th, 7th inning guy in an emergency, a spot starter, a starter for a doubleheader. That's the guy they need him to be. When he was brought in here, he made it known, it wasn't clear, but he made it known that his preference was to have a chance to be a starting pitcher. He made it known that he would like to be a starting pitcher. But he had a very good quote that I think you've got a graphic for here, and I'll just read this along. This is from Nick Martinez. Quote, "I haven't been shy to say that I like being in the rotation. I also like winning. So that's where my priority is." Close quote. He helps this team be a better team by being the long man, being the swing man in this bullpen. He helps this team be in a better position to win games and make a run for the playoffs. And as you heard from him himself, Nick Martinez likes to win.
And if we're going to add strikeouts to his repertoire, like he was a pretty decent strikeout pitcher, but he didn't that wasn't like his main thing. His main thing last year was what I've been harping on all offseason long, and that is forcing ground balls. He's very good at doing that, and I hope he continues to do that for the Reds this season. What he and unfortunately he pitched in the game that there was no broadcast of whatsoever, no television or radio, so we have to kind of rely on how things were written and stuff like that about it. All of the reports were he was just filling up the strike zone with his pitches, and that is a theme that, based on the radio broadcasts of the games that they've had so far and the television broadcast, the Reds are really harping on this. Derek Johnson, like I know him, Derek Johnson has made it a theme for the spring training schedule for this Reds team that they throw strikes. They even have a leaderboard, according to Andrew Abbott, in the clubhouse of pitchers, how many strikes they throw, what percentage of strikes they've thrown in games and stuff like that. So it's going to be a thing moving forward. And Nick Martinez apparently did a lot of that. He's high up on the leaderboard, according to the reports from this game. But I am very excited with the prospects of his versatility, because he did it both for San Diego. He pitched out of the bullpen in high leverage situations, or he came in when a starter just didn't have it. And look, as talented as the Reds starting pitching staff is going to be this year, we know that they got plenty of questions, and we know that their floor isn't necessarily that high. They got all the upside in the world, but that doesn't mean that every single day is going to be consistent. You got to have a guy like Nick Martinez for a pitching staff like what the Reds have.
Yeah, and this is not a Nick Martinez versus Andrew Abbott decision. Nick Martinez was brought in and told he would have an opportunity to compete for the rotation. But remember that signing took place before Frankie Montas was signed. When the Reds signed Frankie Montas, that changed everything. That redistributed the roles. And I guarantee you that there is nobody in the Reds front office right now saying, well, competition between Nick Martinez and Andrew Abbott. Nobody's saying that. I don't know if the Inquirer was just looking to fill column inches or if it was just speculation, but I do not see this battle the same way that they do. I think
Iron
you're
sharpens
right,
iron or something like that.
I think you're right. I think this rotation's set as long as everyone's healthy. If those five guys you mentioned, which is Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, Graham Ashcraft, Frankie Montas, and Andrew Abbott, that's the five. That's the five. It's an easy decision.
I know that like spring training competitions are healthy and it's something that we've heard from Nick Kroll. And he reiterated on the television broadcast. David Bell reiterated it on the television broadcast that these games matter because there's so many competitions in camp. I just can't see there being a scenario that if the five guys that we've talked about are healthy, that Nick Martinez beats out one of them and they're either number one. I don't think any of these five, if for some reason any of these five of Green, Lodolo, Ashcraft, Abbott, or Montas, if any of those five don't make the rotation, they're not going to the bullpen. They're going to Louisville. And they're going to Louisville to keep it up. And I mean, Montas doesn't have any options, so that he's making the rotation, period. They didn't sign him to be in Louisville. That's not going to happen. But I say all that to say this, like, this is just another kind of affirmation, another kind of evidence to me that Nick Martinez is pitching out of the bullpen with spot starts here and there where the Reds need him, nice long relief outings where the Reds need him, high leverage situations where the Reds need him. Nick Martinez could very well be the most valuable pitcher on this team and not be on the opening day rotation. And I don't think that's a stretch.
Now, his actual usage will be really kind of interesting because I do see him as the emergency guy. Like something happens, let's have him start the game. And a bullpen day, I know your favorite words, but a bullpen day doesn't necessarily mean he's
going to be a lot better than the bullpen days.
It'll be a lot better than the previous days. But I think Brandon Williamson will be your guy from Louisville that comes up and goes back down as starters are needed. So I really see the Nick Martinez in the rotation role as it's a last minute thing. It's an emergency. It's an emergency. Someone couldn't make
like
their
Brandon
start. Someone
pitched the day before or something. Yeah.
Right. Something like that. So I really see him as being the innings eater guy that will get you 3 to 4 innings where you need that many and can be a great 6th and 7th inning guy to get you to the back end of that bullpen. That's a great luxury. This bullpen, the more we have talked about it, the more we have looked at it, the more you go back to when they signed Pagan and we were wondering just exactly how this bullpen was going to take shape. And then you fast forward to now. I, again, have to give a lot of kudos to Nick Kroll for what he did. And this is a much better bullpen than what we were talking about to head into 2023. I'm really confident that the 8 guys that are going to be in this bullpen, there's not going to be a one of them where David Bell points to him and we're going to be like, oh my God, this guy again. I don't see that happening.
It's because of Nick Martinez. It's because of a guy that we're going to talk about here in a few minutes. But I do want to ask you this, and I'm curious. I'd love to see the responses in the comment section if you're watching here on YouTube, or if you want to tweet at us at Jeff Carr with 3 Fs and at S. Offenbaker with 2 Fs. Nick Martinez probably going to get some 3 and 4 inning outings. Mm-hmm. Some of those may be to end a game, and we know the ridiculous rule in the save statistic that makes the save just such a weird stat anyway, that if you pitch the final 3 innings of a game, regardless of the score, you get a save. Over under 1.5 saves for Nick Martinez this year.
1.5? Oh, over. Without question.
You think he is more than that? Okay.
He'll stumble into 5 saves.
5 saves.
5 saves.
All right, so let's set it over under 4.5 because I think it's under, because I think he gets like 3 or 4.
All right, if you set it at 4, I got to think about it a little bit more. But if you're at 4.5,
1.5 is probably too low.
1.5 is too low. If you set it at 3.5, I would take the over. 4.5, I'm gonna waffle a little bit, but I think he'll be right in that lane. 3, 4, 5. he'll stumble into those. He's going to be valuable. And you're right. There could be some blowouts that he pitches the final 3 innings of to save, to save Alexis Diaz, to save Lucas Sims, to keep those guys rested and healthy. David Bell has said time and time and time again that guys are going to get a lot more rest in 2024 than they did in 2023. And this is how you do it, by having guys like Nick Martinez available to eat those innings, whether it's a blowout in favor of the Reds or a blowout in favor of the other team.
And in those games where that happens, where Nick Martinez saves the bullpen, you better believe everydayers will know how much we harped on the fact that the bullpen just got overworked last year. You better believe we're going to jump on here and be super excited about a dude pitching the final 3 innings of a ball game. It's going to happen.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. 100%, Jeff. And I go back to that quote that we had from Nick Martinez. It's early. It's spring training. He says, I have not been shy that I like being in the rotation, but I also like winning. So that's where the priority is. This is game 3 of spring training. And there is a singular focus with this ball club, from first man on the roster to 26 man on the roster, a singular focus in this being a playoff team. And I love it. It has been so long since we have had a team like this to follow and root for. And I cannot wait. I want the season to start tomorrow.
They're focused on one word, and it starts with a W.
All right, Jeff. Nick Martinez isn't the only pitcher to make his Reds debut today. Several other Reds pitchers also got in on the action out in Arizona. We'll tell you about some of the other arms that looked good in Goodyear coming up next. Before we get into that, I want to shout out the sponsor of today's podcast. That is FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets back with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. You can bet on all of your favorite NBA action right now. You can bet on your favorite NBA players, your favorite NBA teams. You can use quick bets. You can use live same game parlays. You can bet exclusive props and much, much more. Over-unders, they've got them there. Jeff checks them out every single day. And if you want to check them out, just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to shoot your shot and put your sports information to work for you. If you're looking for some baseball action, FanDuel has Hunter Green at 42-1 to win the National League Cy Young. That could be a very interesting bet, and it might be worth throwing a buck or two at it just to see what happens. If you want to get on the action, head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel is an official sportsbook partner of the NBA and the official sportsbook of Locked On. You can follow us in between episodes on the social medias on X. Jeff always says he wants to be an X-Man. You can follow him over there at Jeff Carr. That's Jeff with 3 Fs. You can follow me at S. Offenbaker with 2 Fs. And you can follow the show at Locked On Reds. Also, join our Discord community. It's getting fired back up with spring training games underway. Lots of good baseball conversation over there. The link for that is down in today's show description. Go give that a click. Come join us and talk baseball in between shows and maybe during the game. Lots of us are popping in and out and talking about the games when they're televised. It's a fun conversation. We love talking baseball with you. And if you haven't done so yet, also head over to InsideTheReds.com, bookmark that site. Jeff's writing about the Reds. I'll be writing about the Reds. Lots of great writers over there giving you Reds coverage in written form. All right, Jeff, there were some other guys that made their Reds debut, their, in one case, professional kind of sort of debut. I mean, it's a spring training game, but first time we've seen them in a Reds or any kind of professional uniform. And lots of good showings for early here in spring training. I want to start with a solid outing. We've been waiting for this. It's a bummer that we didn't get to see it, but we've been waiting for the phenomenon that is Rhett Lowder to make his debut for this team and wear that Reds jersey. And he did just that. He debuted throwing an inning. He allowed 1 hit, but he struck out 2 dudes in that debut, didn't give up any runs, and by all accounts, looked really comfortable on the mound and has been having a blast out in Goodyear. There's been some pictures of him pitching with a big old smile on his face that have been floating around on social media. And this kid just looks like he's having the time of his life.
Yeah, and I think that this is really what we would have seen after he was drafted last year, and we would have gotten even more excited about him. I mean, he is the top pitching prospect on the Reds organization for a reason, And there's a lot of folks that are wondering if we'll see him this season and all this other stuff. We have said that before as to how we feel about that, not necessarily thinking we'll see him this year. If anything, it'll be later on this season. But it was great to see him get out there and kind of make his debut in a Reds uniform. Lyon Richardson, he also pitched. So Rhett Lowder pitched, which, by the way, quick little side about this, because we talked about the television thing. We talked about the broadcast thing yesterday. I don't want to get into all that, but I will say this. It was weird that the Brewers game that had Nick Martinez, the brand new Red, Rhett Lowder, the brand new Red, who had never pitched for the Reds. Ellie De La Cruz was playing in that game. He had some great catching performances in that game. That was the game that had no broadcast around it whatsoever. The game that the Reds almost got no hit in, that Jacob Hurtubise had to get a hit late in the game to break up a, no hitter. That one was the one that was on TV and had a radio broadcast. So that was annoying. Lyon Richardson was in that game. He pitched 2 innings. He did allow a hit and a walk, but he was able to pitch around that and not allow any damage on the scoreboard because of that. It's interesting to see, because I kind of wonder, I think he and Carson Spires are fighting for depth chart position there. So to see kind of who's a little bit higher, I guess you probably put Carson Spires just a little bit ahead of him right now.
Another name you didn't mention is Brent Super. He made his Reds debut-ish, again, spring training, but he threw an inning, allowed a hit, struck out a guy, didn't give up any runs. So great to see him out there. And, he's very fast, endearing himself to Reds country. Everybody loves him. And what a character. I kind of can't wait to see what kind of antics he brings to this team in 2024. I'm already envisioning him messing with Jim Day when they're trying to do interviews. And, I think that he's going to be a lot of fun. Not making a Reds debut, but a friend of the podcast, Lucas Sims, also got his first action of the spring, going an inning, allowed a hit, struck out a guy, but again, no runs. These guys did a good job of limiting damage and not allowing anybody to get across the plate.
Let me tell you, when I say Lucas Sims looked dominant, he looked dominant as you can look in your first spring training appearance. He was phenomenal. He had a breaking ball that buckled the knees of a guy at the plate to get out of, or to finish off that inning. Just a phenomenal looking 3 batters for him. A really good inning for him. But I also want to shout this out too. And this happened in the game that was not broadcast, but we were reading about it in the Inquirer. Something we've talked about ad nauseum is that the Reds catching depth in their organization is a wide open space right now. There really isn't a, this is the next guy type thing. Well, Michael Trautwein was absolutely phenomenal yesterday. And Chase Petty, I don't know, maybe they do this, but Chase Petty should have bought him like a steak dinner. I know it's spring training, it doesn't matter that much, but Chase Petty was having a rough inning, man. In the 6th inning against the Brewers, if you go back and you look at it, Chase Petty allowed a single to Jackson Chourio to start it off. Then he hits the guy. You got runners on first and second, nobody out. So then Chourio, who is the top prospect for the Brewers, decides, I'm going to start this inning, get this inning really going here because the Brewers are losing. We got to make sure they come back here. He tries to steal third. Michael Trautwein was like, nah, gotcha. And then you're like, oh, okay. So then the next guy doubles and puts a dude on, or I think, I can't remember if the guy who got hit by pitch came around and scored. And I think Petty did end up giving up a run. That might have been the run.
He did give up a run. It was right there.
Yeah. The next guy doubles, and then there's a walk. So literally, no outs have been made because of Chase Petty. It's all because of Michael Trautwein. So then, with the guy who just doubled, Joey Ortiz, who the Brewers got for Corbin Burns, he's on second base. Michael Trautwein, not Chase Petty. Michael Trautwein, the catcher, catches him napping, picks him off second. That's fun. Like, if you're a catcher, you throw behind a runner, you pick him off, like that is catcher porn right there. And then you got a dude on first who decides he wants to steal, Yanni Hernandez. Can't say I know much about him, but he tries to steal second base, and Michael Trautwein throws him out the entire inning.
All right, well, we lost Jeff there, little technical difficulties. we're going to go ahead and end the show there for you folks. That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Reds. We will be back at you tomorrow talking with Jason Williams from the Inquirer, where we are going to ask him the question, why is he so serious? I know that there is a perception out there that he brings a little different kind of energy sometimes to his writing, and he's going to talk to us about it. So we're going to have those conversations with Jason Williams. We're going to get you caught up on what Frankie Montas does in his Reds debut coming up on tomorrow's episode. If you haven't done so yet, click that subscribe button, click that notification bell, and click that like while you're down there on YouTube. And if you're listening on your favorite podcasting app for the audio feed, make sure you have subscribed so you never miss an episode of Locked On Reds and what we have for you. Until next time, when we're in your podcasting feed, we're going to keep gathering up all of the information from Arizona, all of the rumors, all of the transactions that we see around baseball. We're going to bring back all of that information, and we're going to keep you locked on Reds every single day. Talk to you tomorrow.